Now you know how to draw 3D shapes, so you could for example draw the head of this dog as a sphere. But the body is made out of many different shapes, and they're all in relation to each other, so you can't just draw a bunch of shapes together and create a body this way. You have to follow certain rules to make them work together. And in this lesson I'm going to show you the rules of drawing multiple objects in the same scene. Let's draw a single sphere first. As long as it's alone, you can't really tell where it is or how it's oriented. But if you add a box under it, then you can see that the sphere lies on the box. You can draw this box again and add some distance between the box and the sphere, and now the sphere is floating. Let's draw the same box once more, but this time instead of drawing this horizontal line, let's tilt it a little. And now we can say that this sphere is tilted up, because its horizontal axis is no longer parallel to the horizontal axis of the ground. So now we can see how the position of the objects in relation to each other is defined by the relation between their axes. Let me give you a couple other examples. Here's a simple ground and a simple body standing on it. You can see how they seem to be oriented in exactly the same direction, because they have all the axes parallel. Let's add one more. This one looks rotated towards us, because its horizontal axes are no more parallel to the ground. The vertical axis stays parallel, which tells us that this was the axis of rotation. Let's add one more, and here the animal seems to be standing on its hind legs, because these two axes are no longer parallel, and this means that this axis must be the axis of rotation. But it's not only about the relation between the body and the ground, but also about the different parts of the body. Let's draw this simple torso and attach a head to it. And you can see how they are all in the same position because they share all the axes. Let's draw one more body. And this time this head is rotated. How do we know? Because they share one axis, the axis of rotation, and the other axes are rotated. So how to rotate something that has already been rotated? Let me show you. When you want to rotate something in the top view, you have to rotate it 90 degrees and draw a section of a circle around these two positions. And then you can simply draw your new position anywhere along this curve. It's exactly what we did with a rotated sphere. We drew the second line at the 90-degree angle, we drew a circle around it, which was turned into an ellipse by the magic of perspective, and then we simply chose where to place our new rotated line. But here we want to do something a little different, because so far we've only been using one of the inner axes as an axis of rotation, and now we want to learn how to place the axis of rotation somewhere else, for example here. So here we need to rotate this line at the right angle, and add the big circle around it, and then once we choose the new position, we need to bring the other axis with us. In 3D you have to do exactly the same. So here's our sphere, and we want to rotate it in this point. You need to copy this section and upscale it while keeping the same proportions. Now you only have to pick the new position for the sphere. The vertical axis will stay the same, and the angle of the third axis can be copied from the curve of the ellipse in front of it. As for its length, you can check how close it is to the horizontal position, or simply place its ends wherever necessary to create the bloated triangle shape. The relationship of the axes is also important in shapes created out of multiple shapes. For example, the head is often drawn with one big sphere for the brain case and a smaller sphere for the muzzle. In the side view it may look like this, and in the top view it may look like this. So you can see that its axes are aligned. This line is parallel to this line is parallel to this, these two are parallel as well, and they share the same middle line. you have to bring these relationships to the 3D view, because if you don't, you can accidentally draw something like this, and then you add the eyes and the nose and it all falls apart. So this is a pretty extreme example, but even small mistakes in this area can be pretty noticeable. So when I want to draw such a complex shape, I first draw the big sphere, and then in my imagination I place the smaller sphere inside of it. This way it's easier to place it in our 3D view. And then I just have to imagine a sort of a tunnel and drag the sphere to the front through it. But here's another trap. So how to know how far you should move the sphere? To solve this, I imagine the whole head as one big shape, something similar to an ellipsoid. And then I rotate it in my mind just as I would rotate an ellipsoid, so I know what shape I need to achieve. And then I just need to fit both spheres inside of this outline. And of course, I need to double check if the axes are aligned, and I make sure that they share the same middle line. When you rotate the head, you need to rotate multiple elements with it. For example, here we have a head with eyes, and when you rotate the head down, the eyes need to be moved down along with the middle line. But you can't just move them and leave them like that. You also need to make them smaller. You probably remember why. The front is closer to the viewer, and when something moves away from the front, it seems smaller. Just keep in mind that this doesn't affect the axis that is parallel to the axis of rotation. So in this case, the eyes will become shorter vertically, but not horizontally. But in this view, where the axis of rotation is vertical, it's the horizontal axis that gets shortened. That would be all for now. As an exercise, you can draw a simple scene, a plane or a box with a simple animal standing on it. Make it so that something in the scene is rotated, either the body in relation to the ground, or the head in relation to the body. If you feel ambitious, you can also draw two simplified animals standing next to each other, but with the torsos in various stages of rotation. You can also test my method of drawing the head with the muzzle, as well as the head with the eyes. Today you learn how to draw multiple shapes in the same scene and how to create bigger shapes out of them. Next time we're going to learn how to turn all this theory into something more practical to use in everyday drawing.